The ballroom fell silent as Victoria Ashford, the most powerful woman in Manhattan's financial district, walked in with a man half her age on her arm. Whispers erupted like wildfire. Cameras flashed. Society's elite exchanged knowing glances, their lips curling with judgment. At 52, Victoria had built an empire worth billions, commanded boardrooms with a single word, and earned the respect of Wall Street titans. But none of that mattered now, because she had committed the unforgivable sin in their eyes. She had fallen in love with someone 25 years younger. They called her desperate, they called him a gold digger. Tabloids painted her as a woman clinging to youth, him as a con artist, seeking fortune. Her family threatened to cut her off. His friends warned him about becoming a laughingstock. Business partners questioned her judgment. Investors whispered about her stability. The world seemed determined to tear them apart, to prove that their love couldn't possibly be real. But what the world didn't know was the truth behind their connection. They didn't see the late-night conversations that stretched until dawn. They didn't witness the way he looked at her when she spoke about her dreams, or how she encouraged him to chase his own ambitions. They didn't understand that love doesn't calculate ages, doesn't measure worth in years, doesn't bow to society's narrow definitions. This is the story of Victoria Ashford and Daniel Rivers. A story of courage in the face of contempt. A story of choosing authenticity over approval. A story that challenges everything we think we know about love, age, and what it means to truly live. Because sometimes the greatest act of defiance is simply choosing to love who you love, regardless of what the world thinks. And sometimes that choice changes everything. Victoria Ashford hadn't planned on falling in love again. After a bitter divorce 5 years earlier, she had thrown herself into her work, expanding her investment firm into one of the most influential financial institutions in the country. Love, she had decided, was a distraction she could no longer afford. Her days were filled with mergers, acquisitions, and strategic decisions that affected thousands of lives. Her nights were quiet, solitary, exactly how she preferred them. Then she met Daniel Rivers at a charity gala supporting arts education. He wasn't there as a guest, but as a featured artist, a talented painter whose work had been selected for auction. At 27, Daniel had already made a name for himself in the contemporary art world, though he remained humble about his achievements. His paintings captured raw emotion in ways that spoke to something deep within the human experience. Their first conversation was accidental. Victoria had been studying one of his pieces, a haunting portrait of solitude, when Daniel approached to explain the inspiration behind it. What began as a 5-minute discussion about art technique evolved into an hour-long conversation about philosophy, purpose, and the meaning they both sought in their work. There was no awkwardness, no awareness of their age difference, just two minds connecting on a profound level. Over the following months, their friendship deepened. Coffee meetings turned into dinner dates. Casual texts became lengthy phone calls. Victoria found herself laughing more than she had in years, rediscovering parts of herself she had buried beneath corporate armor. Daniel challenged her perspectives, introduced her to new experiences, and saw her not as the intimidating CEO, but as Victoria, the woman beneath the title. When friendship blossomed into love, they both resisted at first. Victoria worried about appearing foolish. Daniel feared being seen as opportunistic. But the connection between them was undeniable, magnetic, something neither could ignore. They decided to take a chance, to explore what could be. Consequences be damned. Neither could have anticipated the storm that would follow. The moment their relationship became public, the judgment began. Fierce, relentless, and often cruel. But they had made their choice. Now they would have to fight for it together, against a world determined to prove them wrong. The photograph appeared on page 6, 3 days after Victoria and Daniel attended the Metropolitan Museum Gala together. The headline read, "Financial Titans Midlife Crisis. Billionaire CEO steps out with boy toy artist." The article was vicious, questioning Victoria's judgment and Daniel's motives in equal measure. By noon, it had been shared thousands of times across social media. Victoria sat in her corner office, the article pulled up on her computer screen, her expression unreadable. She had expected criticism, but seeing it in print felt different, more real, more damaging. Her assistant had already fielded calls from 3 board members to major investors, and a reporter from Bloomberg requesting comment on her personal situation. Daniel called her within the hour, his voice tight with anger. He had been at his studio when a friend forwarded him the article. Several galleries that had shown interest in his work were now reconsidering. One curator had even suggested that his association with Victoria might overshadow his artistic merit, reducing him to a footnote in her story. They met that evening at Victoria's penthouse, both shaken but trying to appear strong for each other. Daniel paced the length of her living room, his hands gesturing emphatically as he ranted about the unfairness of it all. Victoria watched him, seeing the hurt beneath his anger, recognizing in him the same wounded pride she felt. "Maybe we should cool things down," Daniel said finally, the words clearly painful to speak. "Just until the attention dies down. I don't want to damage your reputation or your business. Everything you've built, .. Victoria crossed the room to him, taking his face in her hands. "Everything I've built means nothing if I have to hide who I am to protect it," she said firmly. "I didn't create an empire just to become its prisoner. If people can't separate my personal life from my professional capabilities, that's their limitation, not mine." Daniel searched her eyes, finding only certainty there. "They're going to make this so much harder than it needs to be," he warned. "For both of us. Are you sure you want to fight this battle? We barely know where this relationship is going." Victoria smiled, a rare, genuine expression that softened her usually stern features. "I know enough," she said. "I know that what we have is real. I know that I'm happier with you than I've been in decades, and I know that I'm tired of living my life according to other people's rules and expectations." They stood together in the fading light, Manhattan glittering below them. 2 people choosing each other despite knowing the cost. In that moment, they made an unspoken pact. They would weather this storm together, whatever it took. The next morning, Victoria walked into her board meeting with her head held high, ready to address the concerns of nervous investors. Daniel returned to his studio and painted with renewed intensity, channeling his emotions onto canvas. The fight had only just begun, but they had drawn their line in the sand. They would not be ashamed. They would not hide. They would not surrender their happiness to satisfy the judgments of others. Victoria's daughter, Amanda, requested an emergency lunch meeting at an upscale restaurant in Midtown. At 31, Amanda was a corporate attorney with her mother's sharp mind and her father's traditional values. She arrived 10 minutes early, her expression already set in disapproval before Victoria even entered the restaurant. The conversation began civilly enough, with pleasantries about work and Amanda's recent promotion. But it didn't take long for the real agenda to surface. Amanda set down her fork with deliberate care, fixing her mother with a steady gaze. "Mom, we need to talk about this situation with Daniel Rivers." Victoria had known this was coming. She took a sip of her wine, buying herself a moment before responding. "There's no situation, Amanda. There's a relationship. One that makes me very happy. He's 4 years younger than me," Amanda said, her voice dropping to an urgent whisper. "For years, Mom, do you understand how this looks? People are talking. Everyone at my firm has seen those articles. I'm being asked if my mother is having some kind of breakdown." The words stung more than Victoria wanted to admit. She had raised Amanda to be independent, strong, unafraid of others' opinions. Yet here was her daughter, more concerned with appearances than her mother's happiness. "I'm sorry if my relationship embarrasses you," Victoria said coolly, "but I'm not going to end it to make you more comfortable at cocktail parties." Amanda's expression hardened. "This isn't about cocktail parties. It's about your legacy, your company, everything you've worked for. Dad called me. He's worried too. He thinks you're making decisions emotionally rather than rationally." "Your father has no say in my personal life," Victoria replied sharply. "He lost that privilege when he cheated on me with his secretary. And for the record, I've made every major decision in my life, emotionally and rationally. The two aren't mutually exclusive." The lunch deteriorated from there. Amanda suggested therapy. Victoria defended her right to choose her own partner. Old wounds were reopened, past grievances aired. By the time they parted ways, both women were barely speaking, their relationship fractured by a chasm of misunderstanding. Victoria returned to her office feeling hollow. She had always been close with Amanda, proud of the woman her daughter had become. Now that relationship felt strained, possibly broken, all because she had dared to find happiness outside the bounds of social acceptability. When Daniel called that evening, Victoria almost didn't tell him about the lunch. But they had promised each other honesty, transparency, even when it was difficult. As she recounted the conversation, she heard her voice crack with emotion. Daniel listened without interruption, then said simply, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry you're losing relationships because of me." Victoria closed her eyes, fighting tears. "I'm not losing anything that was real," she replied, trying to convince herself as much as him. "If people can't accept me as I am, they never really knew me at all." But late that night, alone in her penthouse, she wondered how much she was willing to sacrifice for this love, and whether the cost might eventually become too high. The art opening should have been a triumph for Daniel Press. His first solo exhibition at a prestigious Chelsea gallery, his work displayed prominently, critics and collectors in attendance. But instead of celebrating his achievement, he found himself increasingly aware of the whispers, the glances, the way conversations would pause when he approached. He overheard two collectors discussing whether to purchase his work. One suggesting that his relationship with Victoria made him more of a curiosity than a serious artist. Another commented that he must be very talented in certain areas to have secured such a powerful patron. The implication clear and insulting. Victoria had wanted to attend the opening, but Daniel had asked her not to come. He told her it was because he wanted the focus on his art, not their relationship. But the truth was more complicated. He was afraid. Afraid that her presence would overshadow his work. Afraid that people would assume she had bought his success. Afraid that he was becoming defined by who he dated rather than what he created. After the opening, Daniel walked the Manhattan streets for hours, his mind churning with doubt. He loved Victoria, truly loved her. But he was 27 at the beginning of his career, still figuring out who he was and what he wanted from life. Was he ready for this level of scrutiny? Was his art strong enough to withstand the skepticism of critics who dismissed him as a fortune hunter? His best friend Marcus called as Daniel wandered past Washington Square Park. Marcus had been Daniel's roommate in art school, had watched him struggle through poverty and rejection, had celebrated his first gallery showing. "You okay, man?" Marcus asked. "You seemed off tonight." Daniel found himself confessing everything, his fears, his doubts, his growing sense that he was losing his identity in Victoria's shadow. Marcus listened, then asked a question that cut to the heart of the matter. "Do you love her because she's rich and powerful, or despite it?" Despite it, Daniel answered without hesitation. "When we're alone, none of that matters. She's just Victoria. Brilliant, funny, passionate about things that have nothing to do with money. She sees me, really sees me, in a way no one else ever has." "Then screw everyone else," Marcus said bluntly. "You've never cared what people thought about your art. Why start caring what they think about your love life? Let the work speak for itself. Let your relationship speak for itself. Anyone who can't see the truth isn't worth your energy." Daniel walked home feeling marginally better, but the doubt hadn't completely lifted. That night, he stood in his studio, staring at a blank canvas, and began to paint. He painted Victoria as he saw her, not as the intimidating CEO, but as the woman who laughed at his terrible jokes, who cried at sentimental movies, who fell asleep on his couch with her reading glasses askew. As he worked through the night, Daniel realized something important. His love for Victoria wasn't diminishing his art. It was deepening it, giving him new perspectives, new emotions to explore. The people who dismissed him as a gold digger couldn't see that he had found something more valuable than her wealth. He had found someone who challenged him to be his best self, who believed in his talent even when he doubted it himself. By dawn, the painting was complete, and so was his resolution. He would not let the world's judgment define their relationship or his worth. He would prove himself through his work, and he would love Victoria openly, proudly, without apology. The emergency board meeting was called without Victoria's knowledge, a fact that immediately raised her guard. She entered the conference room to find her senior board members arranged around the table, their expressions grave. Robert Blackwell, the longest-serving board member and a man who had known Victoria for 20 years, sat at the head of the table, clearly designated as spokesperson. "Victoria, thank you for joining us," Robert began formally. "We've called this meeting to discuss a matter of urgent concern. Regarding the company's public image and leadership stability." Victoria took her seat, her posture impeccable, her face a mask of professional composure. "I wasn't aware we had any issues with leadership stability," she said coolly. "Our Q3 earnings were up 18%. We've secured 3 major acquisitions, and client satisfaction ratings are at an all-time high." Robert exchanged glances with the other board members. "Your professional performance remains exemplary, Victoria. No one is questioning your business acumen. However, your recent personal choices have become a liability. We've received calls from concerned investors. Several high-profile clients have expressed discomfort. The media attention is becoming a distraction." Victoria's jaw tightened. "My personal life is not a board matter," she stated firmly. "I've never allowed my relationships to interfere with my professional responsibilities. And I'm not about to start now." Margaret Chen, the board's newest and youngest member at 45, leaned forward. "Victoria, we're not asking you to end your relationship. We're simply suggesting more discretion. No more public appearances together. No social media posts. Keep your private life private until the attention dies down." "You're asking me to hide?" Victoria countered. "To be ashamed of someone I care about. To live a double life, to make investors more comfortable. I won't do it." Robert's expression hardened. "Then we may need to reconsider your position as CEO. The board has the authority to request your resignation. If we determine that your behavior is damaging the company's interests, we don't want to go that route, Victoria, but we will if necessary." The room fell silent. Victoria looked around the table at people she had worked with for years, people whose careers she had advanced, whose mistakes she had covered, whose successes she had celebrated. Now, they sat in judgment, threatening to take away everything she had built because she dared to love someone who didn't fit their acceptable parameters. Victoria stood slowly, gathering her files with deliberate care. "Gentlemen, Ms. Chen, you've given me much to consider. I'll need 24 hours to consult with my attorneys and review my options. In the meantime, I suggest you consider your own positions. This company exists because of my vision, my leadership, and my relentless dedication. If you think you can run it better without me, you're welcome to try. But I warn you, forcing me out over my personal life will be the biggest mistake this board has ever made. And I don't make idle threats." She left the conference room without waiting for a response, her heart pounding, her mind racing. They had just declared war. Now she had to decide how far she was willing to go to win it. Victoria stood on her penthouse balcony, the city lights blurred by unshed tears. Behind her, her attorney's words echoed in her mind. "They have the votes to force you out if they want to. The optics are bad. Victoria, courts side with boards when they can demonstrate reputational damage to shareholders." Daniel found her there an hour later, having let himself in with the key she'd given him weeks earlier. He wrapped a blanket around her shoulders, saying nothing at first, just being present in her pain. Finally, she spoke, her voice raw. "They want me to choose, my company or you. Everything I've built or this relationship." Daniel felt his stomach drop. He had known this might happen, had feared it, but hearing it stated so bluntly made it terrifyingly real. "What are you going to do?" he asked, though part of him feared the answer. Victoria turned to face him, her eyes red but her gaze steady. "I don't know. That company is my legacy, Daniel. 30 years of my life. Thousands of employees depending on me. Billions in assets under management. Investors who trusted me with their futures. How can I just walk away from all of that?" "But," Daniel prompted gently, sensing there was more. "But what kind of legacy is it if I achieve it by living a lie?" Victoria continued, her voice breaking. "If I have to hide who I love, pretend to be someone I'm not, sacrifice my personal happiness for corporate optics. I built that company on principles of integrity and authenticity. How can I lead others to be their best selves if I'm not willing to be mine?" Daniel took her hands in his heart breaking for her struggle. "Victoria, listen to me. If you need to end this relationship to save your company, I'll understand. I won't like it, it'll hurt like hell, but I'll understand. Your work matters. The jobs you provide matter. The economic impact you have matters. I don't want to be the reason you lose that." Victoria shook her head violently. Don't make this easier by offering to be noble and walk away. This isn't about choosing between you and my company. It's about choosing what kind of person I want to be. Do I want to be someone who bows to pressure, who lets others dictate how I should live? Or do I want to be someone who stands by her principles, even when it costs her everything? They stood together in silence, two people at a crossroads, understanding that the next decision would define not just their relationship, but who they were as individuals. Victoria thought about Amanda's disappointment, her board's ultimatum, the media's relentless scrutiny. She thought about the woman she had been at 27, full of dreams and determination, believing she could change the world on her own terms. "I need time," Victoria finally said. "Time to think, to consider all the options, to figure out if there's a way to fight this without losing everything." Daniel nodded, understanding. But as he held her that night, both of them knew that time was a luxury they might not have. The board wanted an answer. The media wanted a story. The world wanted resolution. And somewhere in the middle of all those demands stood two people who just wanted the simple, impossible thing, to love each other in peace. Victoria didn't sleep that night. Instead, she sat in her home office, surrounded by decades of achievements, awards, photos with world leaders, framed magazine covers proclaiming her one of the most powerful women in finance. Each item represented a milestone, a battle won, a glass ceiling shattered. But none of them represented joy. At dawn, she made a series of calls, first to her attorney, then to her financial advisor, then to a few trusted allies. By mid-morning, she had a plan. It was risky, potentially devastating, but it was hers. No compromise, no surrender, no hiding. The board meeting she called for that afternoon was attended not just by board members, but by senior management and key shareholders. Victoria entered the room with the confidence of someone who had nothing left to lose, which made her more dangerous than they had anticipated. "Ladies and gentlemen," she began without preamble. "I've considered your ultimatum regarding my personal life and its impact on this company. I've reviewed the shareholder agreement, consulted with legal counsel, and made my decision." Robert Blackwell leaned forward, sensing victory. "We're pleased you're being reasonable about this, Victoria." Victoria's smile was sharp. "I'm afraid you've misunderstood. I'm not ending my relationship with Daniel Rivers. I'm not hiding it. I'm not apologizing for it. Instead, I'm offering you all a choice." She distributed folders containing detailed financial analyses. "I'm prepared to buy out any board member or major shareholder who wishes to divest due to concerns about my personal life. My offer is 15% above current market value. You have 48 hours to decide." The room erupted in shocked murmurs. Margaret Chen looked impressed despite herself. Robert Blackwell's face turned red. "You can't possibly afford to buy out more than a few shareholders," he sputtered. "I've secured financing," Victoria replied calmly. Between my personal assets, loans against my equity, and commitments from investment partners who believe in this company's future, I can buy out every single person in this room if necessary. What I won't do is compromise my integrity or my humanity to make you comfortable." She let that sink in before continuing. "This company will thrive or fail based on our business decisions, our market strategy, and our ability to deliver value to clients. It will not fail because I'm dating someone you consider inappropriate. If you believe your personal discomfort with my relationship outweighs your faith in this company's fundamentals, take the buyout. But understand this, I'm not going anywhere. I built this company from nothing, and I'll burn it to the ground before I let narrow-minded prejudice dictate how I live my life." Victoria gathered her materials and stood. "You have 48 hours. Choose wisely." As she left the conference room, she felt lighter than she had in weeks. She had drawn her line, she had chosen herself, chosen Daniel, chosen authenticity over acceptance. Whatever happened next, she would face it, knowing she hadn't betrayed who she was. That evening, she met Daniel at his studio and told him everything. He listened, his expression moving from shock to admiration to concern. "You're risking everything," he said. "For us." Victoria cupped his face in her hands. "I'm risking everything for me," she corrected gently. "For the right to live my life on my own terms. You're part of that life, yes, but this is bigger than us. This is about refusing to be controlled by fear and judgment." The 48 hours that followed were the longest of Victoria's life. 3 board members took the buyout, including Robert Blackwell. 2 major shareholders divested. But surprisingly, many others stayed. Margaret Chen became Victoria's strongest ally, publicly stating that the board's focus should be financial performance, not the CEO's dating life. More unexpected was the support that emerged from unlikely sources. Several prominent businesswomen published opinion pieces defending Victoria's right to privacy and autonomy. A viral social media campaign, #LoveLivesBoldly, trended for 3 days, with thousands sharing their own stories of relationships that defied conventional expectations. Amanda reached out through a tentative text message. "I'm sorry, Mom. I was wrong to judge you. Can we talk?" The lunch that followed was emotional, honest, healing. Amanda admitted she had been more concerned with appearances than her mother's happiness. Victoria acknowledged that she had been so focused on defending her choice that she hadn't adequately considered Amanda's perspective. Daniel's career took an unexpected turn as well. An influential art critic wrote a piece praising his recent work as emotionally mature beyond his years, exploring themes of love, judgment, and social courage with remarkable depth. Galleries that had hesitated now competed for his next exhibition. His art was finally being seen for what it was, not filtered through assumptions about his personal life. 6 months after the ultimatum, Victoria's company reported record profits. The anticipated investor exodus never materialized. Clients remained loyal. The doomsday predictions of those who had opposed her relationship proved unfounded. Business continued, proving what Victoria had always known: her personal life had no bearing on her professional competence. On a quiet Sunday morning, Victoria and Daniel walked through Central Park, hand in hand, no longer looking over their shoulders for cameras or critics. They had weathered the storm and emerged stronger, both individually and as a couple. "Do you ever regret it?" Daniel asked. "All the drama, the battles, the relationships that were damaged." Victoria considered the question carefully. "I regret the pain it caused people I care about," she said honestly. "I regret that we live in a world where this was even an issue. But do I regret choosing to be with you, to live authentically, to refuse to hide? Not for a second." Daniel pulled her close, kissing her forehead. "I love you," he said simply. "Not your money, not your power, not what you can do for my career. I love you. The woman who makes terrible puns, who cries at cat videos, who falls asleep during movies she insisted on watching." Victoria laughed, that free, genuine laugh that had become more frequent in recent months. I love you too, she replied. The man who sees me, truly sees me, and loves what he finds. The man who makes me braver, more honest, more alive than I've been in decades. They continued their walk to people who had chosen each other despite the world's objections. They had proven that love doesn't calculate ages, doesn't bow to judgment, doesn't require society's approval. They had shown that the greatest act of courage is sometimes simply choosing to be happy, to be authentic, to be yourself, regardless of what others think. And in doing so, they had won not just a battle, but themselves. Victoria and Daniel's story didn't end with a fairy tale perfection, where everyone accepted them and all conflicts disappeared. Some family members remained distant. Certain social circles still gossiped. Tabloids occasionally published speculative articles, but these things mattered less with each passing day, because Victoria and Daniel had something more valuable than universal approval. They had each other, and they had their integrity intact. Their relationship taught them both profound lessons. Victoria learned that true power lies not in controlling how others perceive you, but in refusing to be controlled by their perceptions. She discovered that building an empire means nothing if you lose yourself in the process. She realized that courage isn't about being fearless, it's about being afraid and choosing authenticity anyway. Daniel learned that his worth wasn't determined by others' validation, that his art had value independent of his associations, and that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply allow yourself to be loved. Fully and openly, without apology. Together, they proved that love between two consenting adults is nobody's business but their own, regardless of age differences or social expectations. This story is for everyone who has ever felt judged for who they love. For everyone told their relationship doesn't fit society's acceptable template. For everyone pressured to hide their truth, to make others comfortable. Victoria and Daniel's message is simple but revolutionary. Your life is yours to live. Your happiness is yours to define. Your love is yours to embrace. The judgments of others, while painful, cannot diminish the truth of your experience unless you let them. Choose authenticity over approval. Choose courage over conformity. Choose love over fear, because in the end, the only person whose opinion truly matters is the one you see in the mirror. And when you can look at that person and know you've lived honestly, loved boldly, and refused to surrender your truth for anyone's comfort, you've already won the only battle that ever really mattered.